Good morning. Oh, that's good. It's working. We're going to learn a new hymn, a new song. It's number 1012 in the teal hymnal if you want to grab one of those, if you have one of those. Otherwise, the words will be on the screen, and the choir is going to help us learn it this morning. So if you'll stand, please. We're going to do one line at a time, or actually 2 lines at a time. If we could go to the next screen, Josh, thank you. And one more. There we go. So we're going to do, when I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? And then we'll ask you to sing it with us. It goes like this. Ready? And. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Sing it with us. Those first 4 lines. Here we go. And. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Excellent. One more time. Here we go. And when I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? And the next 4 lines go like this. Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? Will you be strong? Here we go. Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your questions with me? Will you share? And it's got a little dotted note in there, so the word "your" is short. Will you share some of your stories with me? Here we go. Will you be strong? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? Excellent. And then the next 4 lines are, if you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. If you will show me, if you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. One more time, those last 4 lines. Here we go. If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. Let's sing the whole first verse. That's just the first verse. When we do it later in the service, there are 2 more. Here we go. It goes like this. Thank you. You sound wonderful this morning.
You all did a very good job on that. Looking forward to the next 2 verses, too. Good morning. Good morning to all, and welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Ruth Robarge, member of the congregation. I would like to welcome everyone here this morning on this beautiful, bright, and brisk day. Let's see here. Yeah. We would, if you have cell phones and you want to check out on social media and let folks know where you are and what you're doing, please feel free to do so at any time. We would ask that you would also silence the phones while you have them out so that you don't suddenly become the star. You don't get paid for being the star, so you don't have to have that ring. We'd like to welcome everyone here this morning. If you brought a guest and want to stand and introduce them, or if you brought yourself and feel so inclined, stand up and tell us who you are and where you're from. Any guests?
I got a few over here, but no one's seen that.
Okay. They don't have to. It's not a requirement, but we'll all just say hi. Say hi. Hi to whoever you are. Okay, so that's good. We also want to welcome the people who are joining us online streaming. So welcome, and we're happy to have you there electronically. Okay. We do have a Sunday Plus brunch or Sunday Plus lunch today. So if you are visiting, just let them know that you're a visitor, and they will pass you in without a charge. So you don't have to stand up and tell us that you're visiting here now, but you can, if you say it later, it's worth your while because it's going to be a very good lunch. You can also check in at our welcome table in the back if you want more information or just want to see what else is going on at the church. Of course, this is a great, your order of service is a lot of information about what's going on, and the announcement reel will play again at the end of the service, so that's always a good time to catch up. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning and welcome once again to this hour of reflection and renewal on this day of transgender visibility. As we enter into worship together, let us call to mind all of our human siblings and kinfolk who do not find themselves named in the formal gender binaries of our culture. Let us offer a tribute of sorrow and silence to those whose lives have been lost, both to violence committed by people so threatened that they could not let difference be, and to the despair of suicide by those who could find no place to be in this world. May their memories abide, and may they rest in peace and power. Here among the living, We speak so often of brokenness in our religious lives. Let us speak in this moment of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you, every part of you. Beautiful, just the way you are. Here, you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You already have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try to be witty or more quiet or more engaging or more outgoing. You don't need to be happier or more solemn, smarter or humbler or healthier. You are beautiful. Every part of you, just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful, just the way they are. You are extraordinary, each and every one of you. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way. Breathtaking. Let us breathe together, inspired by the beauty of one another, by our many forms and the many gifts we bring. Let us join our breathing in a conspiracy of common good and find courage for the path before us and joy in being together. Let this chalice flame illuminate the beauty in each of us so that our gifts may bless the world and the breath of life be renewed in us and in all who seek to know and serve the truth.
Good morning. My name is Parker, and I light this chalice for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, Parker. Now I invite you to rise together in body and spirit and speak once again the words of our covenant promise to one another. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn will be sung in both English and Spanish. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta morir, la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, Spirit of God, come to me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Oh, in the wind, rise in the sea, move in love, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of God, come to me, come to me. Now, while the grown-ups are sitting down, if the children would like to come up and have a little story and conversation, that would be fun. Hi. Good morning. Welcome. Oh, good. We have a good assortment of ages. Hi. Thanks for coming up. You can bring your mom if you want to. That's good. So we have some older kids and some younger kids. How many of you guys are familiar with the story about the cat in the hat? Anyways, most of us have read that, right? What happens? What's the premise of the story? Yeah.
The cat comes in and makes trouble.
The cat comes in and makes trouble. That's it. Okay. So the part I want to remind you about is where the cat is getting into big trouble and then he makes more. So this is what the cat said when he fell on his head. He came down with a bump from up there on the ball, and Sally and I, we saw all the things fall, and our fish came down too. He fell into a pot. He said, "Do I like this? Oh, no, I do not. This is not a good game," said our fish as he lit. "No, I do not like it, not one little bit." "Now look what you did," said the fish to the cat. "Now look at this house, look at this, look at that. You sank our toy ship, sank it deep in the cake. You shook up our house, you bent our new rake. You should not be here when our mother is not. You get out of this house," said the fish in the pot. "But I like to be here. Oh, I like it a lot," said the cat in the hat to the fish in the pot. "I will not go away. I do not wish to go. And so," said the cat in the hat, so, "I will show you another good game that I know." Then he ran out, and as fast as a fox, the cat in the hat came back in with a box. A big red wood box. It was shut with a hook. "Now look at this trick," said the cat. "Take a look." Then he got up on top with the tip of his hat. "I call this game Fun in a Box," said the cat. "In this box are two things I will show to you now. You will like these two things," said the cat with a bow. "I will pick up the hook. You will see something new. Two things. And I call them thing one and thing two. Yes. These things will not bite you. They want to have fun." Then out of the box came thing two and thing one. They ran to us fast. They said, "How do you do? Would you like to shake hands with thing one and thing two?" And Sally and I did not know what to do, so we had to shake hands with thing one and thing two. We shook their two hands, but our fish said, No, those things should not be in this house. Make them go. They should not be here when your mother is not. Put them out, said the fish in the pot. "Have no fear, little fish," said the cat in the hat. "These things are good things." And he gave them a pat. "They are tame, oh so tame. They have come here to play. They will give you some fun on this wet, wet, wet day." Now, here is a game that they like, said the cat. They like to fly kites, said the cat in the hat. No, not in the house, said the fish in the pot. They should not fly kites in a house. They should not. Oh, the things they will bump. Oh, the things they will hit. Oh, I do not like it. Not one little bit. So I'm wondering, do you have rules at your house? Most of us have some rules, right? Is there a rule at your house about flying kites inside?
Yes. Well, I've never tried it before, so I don't know.
Okay, there you go. I think most people probably have never said, okay, there's a rule against flying kites in this house. But let me ask you this, is flying kites in the house a good idea?
No.
No. Most of us are saying no. Okay, so why not? Why is flying kites in the house not a good idea? What do you think? Yeah? You could knock some things over. That's exactly right. Yeah?
I can't even really fly it.
And right, there's not really any wind to fly it, so it wouldn't really work very well. Yeah?
Maybe if it hits a glass, it might fall and shatter.
Right, you might break something. Right, those are all good reasons why flying a kite in the house is not a good idea. So I'm wondering, have you ever gotten so caught up and excited by what you were doing that you did something that turned out not to be a good idea? Anybody ever done that? How about you all? Yeah. Okay. So maybe you made a mess, or maybe something got broken, or maybe somebody got hurt. And as you can hear, that happens to grown-ups too. Sometimes we forget to stop and think about whether what we are doing is a good idea. And so we break things, or we make messes, or we hurt people. So what do you think you should do when that happens? What should you do when you make a mess? Yeah? Clean it up. I think so too. Yeah, exactly. How about when you break something? Then what? Yeah. What should you do?
Clean it up.
Clean it up. What else might you do? Anybody? Yeah.
Try and fix it.
You might try and fix it, but
Or buy a new one.
Or buy a new one, right. So you might certainly clean up the mess. You might try to fix it. You might try to replace it. How about when you hurt somebody? What should you do? Yeah.
You ask if they're okay.
Ask them if they're okay. I like that. That's a good plan. What else? What else should you do when you hurt? Say that again.
Say you're sorry.
Yeah, say sorry, right? Tell them you didn't mean it and you're sorry it happened. Good. Okay, those are some good ideas. So I would like you to remember to think about what you're doing and be careful. And even when there isn't a rule about something specifically, still ask yourself the question, is this a good idea? Okay? Can you do that? All right. All right, thank you. Then go learn some other stuff in your classes, and I'll see you next week. And we'll sing.
Most weeks, we share the Sunday offering with another organization. When we do that, we invite someone from that organization to share the mission of the organization and a little bit about the good work that they do. 1 week each month, all of the collection stays here at All Souls, allowing someone from the board to give the invitation to the offering and share a little bit about about the church and why it is important. To me, this church is a community of people who are here for each other in times of need, and also a community that supports each other in learning, self-discovery, and growth. We also have members who volunteer their time and talents to the church and to the community at large, sometimes on their own and often with others from church. I love this as an example. My daughter Tori and I have been here for 13 years, which is the greater part of her life, and I couldn't have found a better village to raise her in. The donations collected in the plate are a very small amount of our budget. The largest part of our budget comes from pledges that many members give with their bank's bill pay, Give Plus, or by mail. So it is okay to let this basket pass you by without putting anything in it. If you are a visitor and feel inspired to give something, or a member who feels inspired to give a little extra today, you can drop something in the basket or pull out your phone and make an e-donation. And if you haven't filled out a pledge card yet this year, I do ask that you take a moment after service and do that. Today's offering and those that came in by other ways will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
Will you join me in the words of dedication for our offering? We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Good morning. From the blog post by George Godwin. It was one of the most intense uh-oh moments I've ever had. I'm certain I said, oh shit. I know I thought it, because that's when I finally got it. That's when I understood what this candidates' rally was all about. The faces of the crowd had changed. There was a particular expression as they chanted and laughed. It was a certain flavor of delight. They were transported, giddy. They were reveling in it. For the rest of the evening, the crowd remained visibly buzzed on this high. I thought about the look on the faces in that crowd a lot since then. I tried to pinpoint what it was exactly. Tried to find it in other places, other people, in other situations. Look at the video of the Catholic school kids at the March for Life rally in Washington. Forget about smirky McDoucheface. Ignore the Native American elder. Look at the kids in the background, laughing, gleeful. That's the look. It's transgression. That's the power they're feeling, the thrill the MAGA crowd feels. Transgression. You felt it the first time you did something your parents told you not to do. You felt it trying weed for the first time, maybe, or maybe having sex. But this is more. This is like being a hippie in 1967 and realizing sex was nothing to be ashamed of, and then doing it in the road. Transgression is one thing. The thrill of open public transgression is something different. The thrill of being yourself, finally, after repressing so many thoughts, feelings, attributes, and doing it in front of everyone, in front of the world. I've felt it more than once in my life. Most people probably have, in some minor way at least. Coming out as gay or genderqueer is a great example. Even just telling someone what you really think of them, I guess, sometimes. It's an amazing, empowering feeling. It's empowering when the transgression is in the service of something good and decent and positive. And it's just as thrilling and empowering when it is in the service of something malign. Maybe more so.
The Make America Great Again campaign isn't about capitalism or economic security or financial inequality or the opioid crisis. Of course, it's racism, but it's more than that. It's deeper, it's more primal. It's about transgressing social norms, and much more than that, transgressing their own moral sense, shaking it off like a straitjacket and proceeding unencumbered. Now, why do you think a bunch of rural and ex-urban Midwesterners give a damn about Mexicans 1,000 miles away? They don't, not really. You really think they're worried about their jobs being stolen? Give me a freaking break. Every time that crowd of well-fed Midwesterners in the most wealthy nation in the history of the world chants about that wall, what they're really saying is F you. That's why they do it. The wall isn't about keeping Mexicans out. The wall isn't even about a wall. It's about chanting, build the wall. So every freaking Black Lives Matter, #MeToo, LGBTQ, whatever activist that their kid dates can hear it, feel it. F you. Build the wall, build the wall, build that wall. It's all for that gut level feeling, that thrill of shocking convention, of angering the uninitiated, transgressing. You know, I see so many well-intentioned people try to argue with them, try to reason with them, try to debate them, and it's so sad and funny and useless. Debate? Reason? There is no reasoning with this. This isn't about freaking capitalism. It's not about theory. It's not about wealth inequality. And it certainly isn't about statistical research regarding the effect of immigrants on America's low-skilled labor. It's not even about hate. Not really. It's about the joy of hating. The joy of hating. The joy of hate that has built up for decades, exploding through years of social progress and justice and understanding. There's no reason, there is no debate, there is no argument that can match that thrill of realizing that you were right all along. And millions of other people, not to mention the President of the United States, agree with you. You can't argue with the buzz that they're getting from telling everyone else to F you.
vibrations. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all our vices and all our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to riches, reach out to peace, with all our senses and all our visions. Building bridges between our visions. I reach out to peace, with all my senses and all our visions. All my senses and all our visions. Building bridges between our relations. I reach out to me with all our visions and all our visions. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
It has been quite some time, and I don't know how it works these days, but many people in my generation learned to read by following the mild adventures of two children named Dick and Jane. Anybody here remember Dick and Jane? The beginning reader was urged to look, Jane, look, and see Spot run. Like many other educators in the late 50s, my mother found these texts insipid. And she saw no reason to withhold the joys of reading from bright children until they were allowed to enter public school classrooms no earlier than the age of 6. Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss, published The Cat in the Hat, his version of an early reader, in 1957. So it must have been rather new on the shelves when I began sounding out th-ing and th-ing two around the age of 3 years old. Geisel wrote the book as an intentional reaction against the bland realism of Dick and Jane. And it was an immediate hit with teachers and parents, and presumably with kids as well. Of course, it wasn't their money buying it. As for me, I took to reading immediately, as may appear from the size of my library, and I loved it. But I did not love The Cat in the Hat. No, I did not. I was instantly and fiercely and forever on the side of the fish, who from the beginning warns this cat is not good. This cat should not stay. It has been a lowering reflection to learn in the course of casual research for this sermon that Geisel modeled the voice of the fish on Cotton Mather, the famous New England Puritan minister, one of my spiritual ancestors, apparently. This is not to suggest that anyone else doesn't or shouldn't find The Cat in the Hat or its many successors appealing. Only that I personally have never been a fan of the transgressive for its own sake. I was actually more comfortable in the ordered world of Dick and Jane, where I didn't have to figure out whether or not I was being asked to suspend my disbelief about a fish needing water to survive. Perhaps it has to do with growing up in a politically progressive, dogmatically humanist religious environment, where I learned that the only rules ultimately governing the universe were those self-enforcing laws of nature, like gravity. To try to defy them was not daring, but ridiculous, and the consequences were immediate, impersonal, and painful. We do not, after all, live in a cartoonist's imagination, and it needs no artificial punishment to learn not to touch a hot stove. From an early age, I understood that all other thou shalts and thou shalt nots were at some level arbitrary, whether they were parental, institutional, or social. And yet they served to enable life to proceed in a calm, predictable way. And it made me deeply anxious to see them violated, either by adults or by my peers. The appeal of the forbidden was always lost on me. I could certainly understand wanting another cookie, but not that taking it without permission would make it taste better. I think this incomprehension carries over to the appeal of bullying or making other people feel bad. I don't understand it. I never have. Which is why, until I read George Godwin's blog post, I kept not being able to wrap my mind around the appeal of those Make America Great Again campaign rallies. Much ink has been spilled trying to explain why it makes sense to a certain cohort of people to resent immigrants and women in positions of power to scorn the sexual prerogatives of men, and people of color who demand to be treated with equal justice and dignity, and GLBT folks who want everyone else to mind their own business about anybody's sexuality, and journalists who challenge the ego and self-image of the supposedly rich and entitled. Much breath has been spent over dinner tables and over Facebook, pointing out how aggressive and unfair and personally hurtful and dangerous this rhetoric of exclusion is. Attention has been drawn again and again to frightening historical parallels. None of that has changed anything. There have been streams of advice about how liberals can and should be more open, accepting, and empathetic towards members of this cohort in spite of not receiving even the barest courtesy in return. We have made ourselves feel guilty about this, assuming that our manifest inability, as demonstrated by the polls, to call forth anyone's better nature or higher self was a failure of our willingness for connection. You may have asked yourself, as I have done, whether a preference for a society characterized by compassion, humaneness, and accountability was somehow an artifact of privilege. No more. I'm done. I think it is time for us all to dispense with the premise that there is anything rational or morally mature about the policies of the current administration, or anything intended to be logically persuasive about its rhetoric. The hurtful and divisive tone taken by the president and those who endorse the agenda that he represents is not an accident of limited vocabulary or an artifact of cultural misunderstanding. It is intended to flout the cultural conventions of decency. It is deliberately provocative, transgressive on purpose. Its contempt for good manners and goodwill is a feature, not a bug. The transgression of the disciplines of logic, respect for others, and self-control are what constitutes its thrilling power, which means that appeals to reason or to consideration for those who have less power will never prevail to stop it. You can't talk the cat in the hat out of his mayhem by pointing out that he is breaking the rules and making a mess. That's the point. That is his notion of fun. He cannot be persuaded, only overcome by the threat of a higher authority. In this case, Mom. There is, I ought to confess, one form of transgressive thrill that does appeal to me, and that is self-righteousness. I take a certain pleasure in pointing out when those in power with whom I disagree are demonstrably wrong. It's no fun, from my perspective, to be one up on somebody to whom I owe forbearance in the first place, like a frail elder or a junior colleague or someone less socially privileged, which I find means that the opportunities for really satisfying self-righteousness are rather few these days. But I would take unbecoming pleasure in thwarting an ICE agent, or a megachurch biblical literalist, or a sexual harasser, or the CEO of a polluting corporation, or a Ku Klux Klan demonstrator, or a Holocaust-denying professor. Those are the examples that come to mind immediately. I dare say there are a few others that I could think of, or you could name. The point is that even someone with as little inclination toward the transgressive as I have is not entirely immune. I'm not likely to be drawn into chanting "lock her up" or "build the wall," but there are no doubt things I would chant, given the right circumstances. War, what is it good for? For instance, if memory serves. What is interesting and infuriating and intractable about the Make America Great Again movement is that it is precisely my expectations of human decency that they are taking such pleasure in flouting. When did we become the establishment, the arbiters of culture? I missed the moment. I came to adulthood believing that we were the outliers, the ones whose values were against the popular norms. And yet it appears that to a certain extent, this moment did happen. One commentator I read, without copying or remembering their name, alas, has written that sometime during the decades between the 1950s and now, our culture has shifted. We have moved from the understanding that it is unacceptable to be weird or out of step with the mainstream, and not really a problem if you are cruel, as long as it is to those who are powerless and or different, people of color, women, homosexuals, children, the disabled, or neurologically diverse. From that to a new standard, which is the reverse, that it is not that much of a problem anymore to be different or weird, but it is unacceptable to be visibly or verbally cruel. If this is true, it would certainly be a change after my own heart. I see nothing reprehensible about oddness and everything wrong with deliberately causing pain. And it seems to me that this is precisely the expectation that the chanting Fox News devotees derive their unholy joy from transgressing. They know they are causing harm and fear. We don't need to tell them again. They are well aware. It's what they want to do. It's a choice, a celebration of their power to be selfish and cruel to those they can hurt if it feels good, and a celebration of the inability of anyone else to stop them. So what then? It is no easy thing to halt the madness of crowds in its tracks. And I don't think there is any magic solution for the MAGA transgressive high. 5 conclusions occur to me if what Godwin has proposed is true, and I'm inclined to think that it is. The first is that we must not give up our own commitments to the disciplines of reason and logic, of good manners and good taste, and to compassion for the needy and the hurting. However, what we should give up is sulking when those considerations have no impact on people who are enjoying the flavor of transgressive cruelty. We must continue to be the grown-ups in the room and model our values, but we can stop pointing out that the government's behavior and that of its supporters doesn't reflect those values. They already know that. It's not an accident. It's a feature, not a bug. Second, I think that whether or not we can stop them, and as uncomfortable as it makes us, we must bear witness to every word and every act. We must show up at the scenes of cruelty, at the camps and the courts and the Congress, and document whatever we can. When this toxic infatuation subsides, the first impulse will be to deny that it happened, to suppress the records, and to make us and others skeptical of our own traumatized memories. We will need to be able to prove that what we experienced was real. We must do all that we can to protect the principle of a free press and journalists as individuals. We have to keep our eyes open, remain alert and curious. We will need to be able to tell the story of what happened and how it all came to pass. Keep watch. Bear witness. Remember. Third, as Godwin points out, part of the excitement comes from transgressing standards that even the rally crowds in their own more thoughtful moments would affirm. We must keep chipping away at the inconsistencies between who people say they are and what they say they believe, and the reality of what their behavior actually brings about. I particularly enjoyed a meme I saw recently, a quote from the Reverend Barbara Brown Taylor, who says, "The only line I draw these days is this. When my religion tries to come between me and my neighbor, I will choose my neighbor. Jesus never commanded me to love my religion." Yay, Barbara. We need to harp on every policy that devalues families, that dishonors veterans, that makes children unsafe, that eliminates jobs, that is unbiblical and unchristian. That kind of cognitive dissonance can puncture the haze of excited narcissism over time. And don't forget that it offers an equal opportunity challenge. We too must be constantly alert to how our actions reflect our ideals and how effectively we ourselves practice as we preach. Fourth, we must use the tools of democracy effectively, recognizing that we are in a power struggle. Moral suasion is less effective against a bully on a rampage than higher authority, which is what our government intends for the will of the majority to be. If it is true, as the community organizers tell us, that power is organized people and organized money, then liberals and progressives need to keep up the energy of nominating bold thinkers and caring representatives from diverse communities and supporting them with contributions, with enthusiasm, with votes, and with cheering on while they serve. We ought to be willing to have intense, substantive conversations about issues and still unite behind candidates that represent our understanding of the common good. The thrill of transgressive defiance and rage, is no substitute for grassroots political work over time. Nor can the intense but fleeting camaraderie of a mob replace the network of community connections that are built by patient and persistent effort. This moment, exasperating as it is not the time to let slip the basic disciplines of political practice. Connect, pay attention, advocate, get out the vote. We know how to do this. We just need to believe that it still matters. Finally, we need to find our narrative, the story about how we are all in this together, about how the planet needs us to unite, and how differences are beautiful and good, and how we all thrive when we use our abundance to care for those who need it most. We must offer an alternative to the toxic pleasures of transgression, something more satisfying than the forbidden fruit of hatred. The best would be learning to celebrate our connections and our diversities in ways that excite and engage and transform us, so that the hunger of our spirits can feed on something more nourishing than the empty calories of FU. It seems to me that if Seuss's young characters were not sitting around alone and bored on that cold, rainy day, the Cat in the Hat would not have had the opportunity to insert his transgressive chaos into their household. We must prepare the alternative for when the fever of the rally crowd breaks and the hollowness of build the wall becomes evident even to its most fervent devotee. We must continue all along to teach the values of reflection, humility, and generosity, of dignity, acceptance, and kindness, of seeing each other as beautiful and accountable and blessed. We must not just teach these ideals, but demonstrate them in action in our communities, in the ways we treat our neighbors. For in the end, it is not words or slogans or chants, even in huge crowds, that are finally persuasive, but examples. You cannot teach responsibility by inciting selfishness. You cannot teach respect by practicing contempt, and you cannot teach greatness by modeling petulance. No, you teach care by showing compassion. You teach generosity by showing acceptance. You teach love by listening and comfort, by sharing and commitment. Because no matter what corporate greed and inherited privilege might urge us to believe, our capacity for mercy and loyalty to each other is a feature of the human condition, not a bug. So we rise and sing. extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. For all these we carry in our minds and hearts until we are together again. So go out into the highways and byways, said Universalist John Murray. Give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it and let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding into the hearts and minds of people. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach kindness and everlasting love. Go in peace.